After I graduated from Crippled Children's Hospital and School in Sioux Falls in August of 1973, um, I attended the University of South Dakota at Springfield, the same place where I'd gone to the STOP program the year before. Um, some things were not necessarily in my favor so much, but uh, I had graduated, as I had, maybe have mentioned previously. I skipped a class, or skipped a grade, sixth grade. So when I graduated, I was 17 years old, and pretty much everybody else around was 18. And there were a couple things about that. Probably the most important was that at that time, the legal age to buy 3-2 beer was 18. And hardly anybody carded anybody back then, in small towns and stuff. They just kind of knew. So uh, in Scotland, they figured since I graduated high school, I must be 18. And in Springfield, where I went to college, they, as long as you had a college ID, they didn't even ask. So again, it was one of those things. It maybe wasn't the best thing in some ways. Um, and quite honestly, had I found the classroom as much as I found the bar, I probably would have done very well, at least reasonable. Another thing with being younger was, that I believe, I will say, honestly, I was a bit immature to be going to college. And there's some things about college, college classes, whether you go there or don't go there, the teachers don't really seem to care a lot. They take roll generally, but, most of them weren't real, hard ass about it. They just took roll sometimes. And whether you went to class or didn't go to class, it really didn't seem to matter. Unlike at Crippled Children's, where they kind of wanted to know and did kind of know where you were most of the time. And, supper was at a certain time, lunch was at a certain time, breakfast was at a certain time, and you couldn't miss, except where you did have the option on Saturday mornings if you didn't want to go to breakfast. But other than that, you had to be in the lunchroom at the time that, dinner was served or whatever. Whether you ate or not, you did have that choice, but you had to be there. There wasn't any choice about it. And when you went to class, I won't say I never cut classes when I was at Crippled Children's, but very rarely, because they pretty much would come and find you wherever you were, and probably with good reason. Whereas when you go to college, go to class, don't go to class. It really didn't seem to matter at all. And I will be very honest, I cut class quite often, which was not probably the best thing in the world. And also, as I said, I spent, if I had found the classroom as often as I found the bar, I probably would have done all right. My first semester went okay, but it kind of went downhill from there. And by the time at the end of my sophomore year, my GPA was 1.49, which is on a 4-point system, so basically a D plus. And you had to maintain a C average to get financial aid and things like that, or just to stay in school without going on probation. So at that point, mutual agreement with the college that I go out on my own, and of course, or go out, not graduate, but just leave school. And, at the time when you're a kid, I always think of the Mark Twain thing when when I was 18 years old, my father was the biggest idiot on the face of the earth, but by the time I was 21, I was amazed at how much the old fool had learned in that time. Well, I was kind of in that time when I thought I knew everything, and I will say I went to my electronics classes pretty good, but still, I blew off more of those than I should have. And again, I was partying much more than I should have, and not saying that that's abnormal, because a lot of students do that, I guess. And but some of the things that really changed is not long after that. One of the things, we would generally go down on Saturdays to Groveland Park Ballroom down by Tyndall, South Dakota, and they had would have live bands in this literally old sheep shed building that was pretty awful. But again, they didn't really. If you had $5 to get in, that was your carding. You didn't. Nobody ever asked for ID in there either. They even had a cop at the door, but again, as long as you had your $5 bill, your ID was Abraham Lincoln, and beyond that, they don't really care. And so you could buy beer and stuff, and I again did more than I needed to. Along the way, not too long after I was out of school, um, I was down at Groveland, and I was sitting there, and I looked around, and everybody was so much taller than me all of a sudden. And I realized that I had fallen on the floor. And it had taken me a few seconds to actually realize I had fallen. It was at that point, and I did manage to get back up by myself, but it was at that point that I decided that I really couldn't drink. That I didn't, I didn't really like it that much. I just did it because everybody did, and it was peer pressure, and that's what you did. And so I wanted to be cool like everybody, and I decided, you know what? Walking is far more important to me than getting drunk every weekend and drinking at all. At that point, I basically stopped drinking altogether. I had never missed it at all. And looking back, it was probably one of my better decisions that I made at the time, considering that I made some pretty awful ones with, not going to classes and things like that. So that did catch up to me later, and I will talk about that another time.